Hello to you all and welcome to IMPROVATE's first international conference. IMPROVATE is a platform for connecting governments and innovation companies. IMPROVATE's mission is to connect change makers in technology with leaders in governing positions. IMPROVATE is dedicated to find solutions and sparking collaborations that will improve the quality of life for the many. Here with us, IMPROVATE's founder and chairman, Irina Nevzlin. Our special guest today, the Right Honourable Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and the founder and chairman of the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. Also with us today are honourable ministers from Israel and Africa, Mr. Yizhar Shai, Minister of Science and Technology from Israel, Mr. Joseph Antoine Kasonga Mukata, Minister of Agriculture, Democratic Republic of Congo. Also with us, Omari Tewebe Gumba, Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Tanzania, Minister Ato Sani Reddy, Minister of Natural Resources Management and Food Security in Ethiopia, Professor Edie Boga, Secretary of the State Department for Crop Development and Agriculture Research, Kenya, Minister Jubalani Mabuza, Minister of Agriculture, Eswatini, Mr. Jonathan Bialosuka Wata, the Minister of Fisheries and Livestock in Congo, Mr. Masima, he is the Ambassador of Tanzania in Israel, and Mrs. Coringanor, Head of Structures and Export Finance at Bank Discount. We will hear today from Israel leading agrotech and innovation companies. They will present solutions here in the studio in the field of food security. Food security has become a burning issue, especially today because of the pandemic. That is why we choose to deal with this issue today. So here at the studio or via Zoom, Netafim, Next Firm, LR Group, ICL, Alphabet Planners, AgroScout, Bioefficiency, Milkey, Bermad, and finance company that can help those wonderful tech companies to do business in Africa. Discount Bank, Ashra, East Africa International Finance Corporation, and African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank. Also watching us, representative of investment fund from around the world that are looking for investment in Israel innovation companies. This conference will be the first in a series of international conference held by IMPROVATE to connect between governments and innovation companies. So, let's start. I would like to introduce Irina Nevzlin, the founder and the chair of IMPROVATE. Irina is Israeli entrepreneur. She grew up and started her career in Moscow, continued in London, and now lives in Israel. She's the author of the book, The Impact of Identity, The Power of Knowing Who You Are. Over the last decade, she's a chair of the board in the Museum of the Jewish People. She conducted a $100 million transformation. It is now the biggest Jewish museum in the world, telling the story of unity and success. So, Mrs. Nevzlin, what is the vision behind IMPROVATE?
First, Danny, thank you very much for the question. And I have to tell something. I'm very excited. I'm grateful to everybody who is watching us and who is with us in the studio. It's our first inaugural conference, and we did it at the time when it's hard to imagine it's possible. And it's possible because there is some nice woman looking to me from control room, Ronit Hassin-Hochman, who is my partner and the CEO of the company who made it happen. Now, back to your question. You see, I think we all know that there is a crisis in leadership around the world. We see it everywhere, not just in crisis. It started before. Another problem is that for leaders to lead now, it became much more complicated because the world became so much more complicated. And so in order to lead in times like that, you really need to be able to do the teamwork and to bring different brains together. And what I see is that over the last decade, 2 decades, we really have 2 leadership groups. One is elected politicians, and the other one is tech companies, which are growing in their impact on life of everybody. Now, those two groups are ought to talk together to build a shared language, and this is where we come into place. We want to make sure that these groups come and work to make life better for all of us and for many.
So, Mrs. Nevslin, how can IMPROVATE help the world in those problematic days?
I'm glad you asked. Look, I think a lot of people who are here with us today get invitations to a lot of different gatherings. Now it's mostly online, but it used to be physical, where you have these discussions, which are basically two topics. One topic is issues and hand problems that we have, and the second one is who are we going to blame today for those problems? Now, while I think it's very important to know what problems we have and how we got to that, I also feel that there's a big group of people around the world who want to have another discussion. And the discussion is, okay, we have a problem. There's a theoretical reason why we got to where we got. But what we want to do is come together and find the solutions that will actually make our life better and everybody's lives better. So this is, I think, what IMPROVATE ought to do, especially in the time of crisis.
So that's what we're going to do in the next hours. Thank you, Mrs. Nevslin, for staying with us. And now to London. Hello, Mr. Tony Blair. It is a great honor to have you with us today. Today's meeting focuses on the subject that I know, very close to your heart, food security. Being active in Africa, how do you see the food security challenge in the continent, especially when the COVID pandemic makes a big problem in access to food?
Yeah, first of all, a big congratulations to everyone at IMPROVATE, to Irina and her team for making this get together happening. It's actually a huge tribute to their skill and ingenuity that they've managed to get so many people together on what I think is going to be a really important method of connecting people for the betterment of people in Africa. So food security is, of course, a huge challenge. And it was a challenge before COVID. COVID has deepened that challenge. But there's one other thing that the COVID-19 crisis has done, and that is that any problem that was there before COVID is there now, but accelerated. And the same is true also of the thinking behind the solutions to these problems. So in all the conversations, my institute works in around 15 different African countries with teams of people, and we're about to go into several more, including some of the countries represented on this call. What we find is there's now an enormous interest in the whole question of technology and what it can do to accelerate Africa's development and accelerate the solutions to these long-standing problems. Now, on food security, it's very, very clear. There are still large numbers of people in Africa that go hungry. Africa, just to give you some data points, it imports around $80 billion worth of agricultural produce. It exports 40 billion, so it has a deficit when it should have a huge surplus. The tariffs between African countries on the export of goods between those African countries are high, on average 12%. That means sometimes you have a situation where, for example, in South Africa, it could be actually more, it could be cheaper to import from Argentina than from an African country next door. And then thirdly, you've got a situation where the population of Africa is going to double in the next 30 years. So it's going to go from roughly 1.2 billion people to over 2 billion people. And at the same time, the numbers of people going to the cities is increasing. So this food security question has always been acute. It's even more acute now. And there is literally no way of dealing with this unless there's agricultural transformation in Africa. And that is to do with logistics and infrastructure and food production and scale. But technology has a role to play in each and every one of the issues that affect African agriculture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blair. We will be talking with you later again. Thank you very much. Now, here in the studio, the Minister Izhar Shai, or we'll talk about something else now. Minister of Science, that is the right thing. In Israel, Izhar Shai, Israel is considered an innovation nation. As a minister who only recently entered your position, what are your plans to expose the world to Israeli technology?
Thank you, Danny, and thank you for having me here, Rena and Danny. It's a great honor to be here. Israel is considered as one of the leading hubs of innovation around the world. We are building innovation in various areas of technology and science. And as we are building those areas, we are also always looking forward into what happens next. What are the trends that build the next exciting companies, the next exciting areas for exploration of scientists, technologists, people who build companies, people who build the research within universities. As we look into what happens in the near future, we are looking into the potential of artificial intelligence as one of the most significant worldwide trends, which has a practical implication in almost every aspect of our day-to-day lives. As this applies to our discussion here, AI, artificial intelligence, is very applicable towards the areas of agriculture, of precision agriculture, which is an up-and-coming market trend by itself, and is a basis for cooperation between Israel and, I hope, many nations in Africa, and by the way, around the world as well.
So can you say a word about Israel's startup companies and food security in Africa?
So, as a minister, I'm not allowed to mention names, so I will talk to the market names. Segment. We do see Africa rising over the last decade as a potential market for Israeli companies. Traditionally, Israeli companies, even in the area of agriculture, were focused more on South America, North America, and some areas in the East. Now Africa has become a good trade partner for Israeli companies, for innovation companies that deal with the various aspects of food security. And again, you see companies developing technologies in the area of water technologies. You see companies developing in the areas of food improvements, yield, again, using AI for precision agriculture in order to improve the quality of crops, the quality of agricultural product around many sectors of that market. And we believe that this will also be the basis for much more to come, as the world is now realizing the importance of food technologies, of food security, and agriculture as a whole. I grew up in the Israeli high tech in the 90s. You would not talk about agriculture in the sense of innovation then. Nevertheless, we are 30 years later, which speaks to my age. And now we are talking agriculture as innovation, as an important aspect of the Israeli tech nation, startup nation, and innovation overall.
And as Mr. Blair said, the people of Africa will be double themselves in 30 years. So Milkey provides a complete solution for dairy farms and processing units in Africa. All knowledge and all technologies are Israeli made. The company supplies greenhouses for growing vegetables and flowers all over the continent. The company is based in Nairobi, Kenya, for the last 10 years. With us today is Dor Moran, founder and CEO of Milkey. Before we speak, let's take a look. Mr. Moran, thank you again for joining us from Milkey. So I understood it's something with milk.
Absolutely.
What kind of technology do you supply in Africa?
Milkey provide a complete solution, grass to glass, we call it, from the grass to the glass in Africa. So the company exists in Africa for the last 10 years' time. We use technologies from Siemens, coming from Sion, Israeli company, and SCR, herd management, milk management, health management for your cows, as well nutrition. So all our base is around the Israeli technology, around the Israeli dairy method. And we implement it in Africa, in Kenya mainly, according to the needs of the locals.
And how will these technologies help to increase food productivity?
First of all, we detect more health issues. So we have any problem with the cows, we found it early. We bring semen that basically create higher yield cows. So if Kenya and Tanzania, they're using, let's say, 5 liters per day, in Israel, we're using 40 liters per day per each cow. And by using this kind of semen, by monitoring by our technologies, we want to take, and we are doing it, taking the milk production up.
Ambassador Massima, what do you think so far about the presentations?
It's good, but the problem is that once you come to milk production, it's a long process. And there are various products for milk, cheese, milk, yogurt, and whatever. Which area in particular are we more interested that the product of it will be higher than the normal one?
First of all, you need to start to feed the cows.
Okay.
And you need to start to use proper semen. When I say proper semen, each semen is different kind of technology. In Israel, we're using very high yield cows. So, you know, our cows giving 40, 44 liters, I'll say, per if you're using the same kind of semen and you inseminate your cows and you let them eat what they need and you monitor them, you'll be in the same situation as Israel in 5 years' time.
So the rest of the programs will be constant?
Later on.
Okay.
First of all, we need to look after the milk. We need to create more milk. Your population is growing. We need to have more milk. Then we can process it.
Mr. Moore, you said that in Africa they're using 5 liters of milk, in Israel 40 liters. Why such a big difference?
Look, in Africa, most of the milk is homemade. So people growing the cows at home, let them eat whatever they have, and whatever they milk by hand, this is what they get. When in Israel, it's industrial. They have a dairy farm, and with all the technologies, all the knowledge, with proper nutrition, and also proper genetics. So it's not a miracle. So if they will copy-paste, and we done it in this kind of farm, what we see now in the movie, we done it. They start from 5. Today, they're, I think, around 30 liters.
20.
30.
20 to 30.
We have now one farm in Nakuru, Kenya, that he reached to 40 liters average per head, same as in Israel. Take him 6 years, and he reached.
How much it takes to change it?
I will say it's 6 years' time.
6 years?
Yeah, you start from 5, so you need to change the whole herd. So we have like one farm, Brookside, today. They want to go and to bring cows from Israel, to take the cows from here, bring it into Kenya to start to have proper breed from the beginning. But this takes time. This is something that you need to look for 6 years' time, 10 years' time.
This is also another type of cows.
Basically, the type is the same, Friesian Holstein, so we don't have the different variety of cow. But the different is what we're using is different genetics.
Mr. Moran, thank you very much from Milkey. That's it from IMPROVATE Food Security in Africa. We have heard today about the needs of Kenya and Ghana, Ethiopia, Congo, and Tanzania in the field of food security. We received an overview of the continent from Honorable Tony Blair with us here in Israel, Ministers of Agriculture and Science and Technologies. We were exposed to leading Israeli agri-tech companies that can help the problems of food security. IMPROVATE's next conference will be on the topic of upgrading agriculture through smart agricultural technologies in Eastern Europe, and will take place in October 29th, 2020, chaired by the former Bulgarian President Rosen Plevneliev
and agriculture ministers from Eastern Europe. Thank you all. Let's hope for better days for everybody, health for everybody. Thank you.